What's going on, everyone? It's Rylan with Rylan's Amazing Photography, and today I'm going to be giving you 5 tips to improve your outdoor portrait photography. So I'm not going to waste any time. Let's go ahead and get into step 1. Step 1, the very first way that you can improve your outdoor portrait photography is using external lights. And I don't mean you have to have this huge, big, massive light with a diffuser and just like a little trigger that goes on top of your camera with a hot shoe. It doesn't have to be anything big and elaborate. It can be a little flash like this. It's very small. It fits on your camera just fine. And watch this. Watch this. Boom. It's so subtle you don't even notice it unless I point it right at the camera. So, with that being said, this can, I'm telling you, a flash just like that can totally just like make your outdoor portraits look 10 times better. They work magic. I'm not even playing with you all. Here's some portraits that I've taken using a flash of myself recently. I'm gonna be honest, I've not used flash a lot in my career, and I just kind of got into using flash for outdoor portraits, and I think it makes them look like 10 times better, because a lot of the times when using natural light, and don't get me wrong, I don't have anything against natural light. I've used it for years and never really played that much with the flash, but you can absolutely nail your exposure with a flash and have to do much less post-production than you would if you weren't using one, because you're going to have the background nice and not blown out. It's going to be perfectly exposed, and when you're doing that with natural light, usually your subject is going to be a little bit underexposed, but when you use a flash, you can make your subject perfectly exposed, and then the background is also perfectly exposed, so there's much less post-production that goes into the photos. And there's just a little bit of a twinkle that you're going to catch in your subject's eye, which makes it look much better than when they don't have one. I'm a really big fan of that. So, with that being said, tip number 1 that can help improve your outdoor portrait photography is using external lights. The second thing that I'm going to tell you that can improve your outdoor portrait photography is something that has ruined a great many of my photos, and you have to be very attentive to detail when you're doing outdoor photography. And so with that being said, my second tip is pay very close attention to backgrounds and distracting elements in a photo. And what I mean by that is there can be a lot of different distracting things in a photo, especially in the background. Now, you might be at f1.2 and you think, oh, well, nobody's going to be able to tell anything about my background anyways. But you can still somewhat tell if you have a bunch of power lines running through the back. That's going to be distracting. If you have some sort of traffic sound in the background, that's going to be distracting. If there's trash in the background, that's going to be distracting. You have to pay very, very, very close attention, and that's something, especially if you're a photographer that shot in a studio for your entire life. You're not going to be as attentive to detail when it comes to the background. You're going to be really good with making sure that there's nothing on the clothing and that they're posing good, because you do all that in a studio. But if you're moving from a studio to outdoors, you're not going to be as attentive to the background because you're used to using backdrops that are perfect that you've created. So with that being said, my second tip for outdoor portraiture is that you're going to want to make sure that you're being very attentive to details. And I know I'm focusing a lot on kind of making sure that there's no distracting elements in the background, but it's also very important to be aware of your subject's pose, to make sure there's not anything on the clothing that could potentially be distracting. Make sure that there's not hairs out of place. There's a lot of important things that go into a good portrait. But for this second tip in particular, I want to make sure that you're focusing on the background and paying very close attention to any distracting elements that could be in the background of an image. So my third tip to improve your outdoor portrait photography is using a longer lens. Now, I think a lot of people don't think of this, especially beginners into photography. They think, oh, well, I can be really close to you and use this lens that's a wide-angled lens and get a good shot of your entire body, or get a good headshot because I'm so close, I'm not having to walk around, blah, blah, blah. Not true. Well, I mean, it is true, but Here's the issue with using a wide-angled lens. It's going to exaggerate your facial features dramatically. If you already think you got a big forehead and you use a wide-angled lens, you're going to think your forehead is longer than the wingspan of an eagle, because a wide-angled lens is really, really good at exaggerating your facial features. And I'm not saying never use a wide-angled lens, especially in creative portraiture photography, because there's definitely a place for them. But I think if you're working with a client, it's pretty important if you're doing a headshot, or if you're doing like a shot waist up, or even if you're doing a full body shot, I think it's good to use 50 millimeters and longer, because if you're using a 28 millimeter prime lens even, and you're doing like a headshot, it's gonna exaggerate their facial features, and it's not very appealing to the person to look at when they think that they don't look that way, and that's because they don't look that way because it's exaggerating their facial features. So using a lens like a 50 millimeter, an 85 millimeter, that is going to compress their face much more. It's going to make them look how they look in real life. It's not going to exaggerate anything. If anything, it might make them look better, because it's going to make your nose look closer to your face. If you have a really big nose, it would make it look smaller. It's not going to exaggerate anything. It really kind of compresses your facial features together in a good way, and it looks very appealing, especially to clients. So I think it's very important for the third tip to use 50 millimeter lenses and longer. My fourth tip that is going to help you improve your outdoor portrait photography is to not shoot in harsh light. You're not going to want to go outside at 12, 1, or 2, just any time in the middle of the day where the light is just absolutely beaming down. You're not going to want to go out during that time of day, because that light is not appealing at all. In fact, that harsh light is very ugly and can turn what could be a really good photo into a really bad photo because of the lighting. So I think it's very important to follow suit with this sort of trend. It's definitely a trend to not shoot in the middle of the day, and that's a trend that I'm always going to stick to until the day that I die, because shooting in harsh sunlight is just not good. It's not good for pictures. It's not good for the subject. It's not good for people that are out in it, because a lot of the time it's burning up. That's the hottest time of day, especially during the summer. You're not going to want to be out during those times. So with that being said, do not shoot in harsh sunlight. But there's a fine line that you can kind of cross here that will help you shoot during the day, and that is shooting in the shade, shooting in shadows. But you've got to be careful if you do choose to shoot in the shade, because that's a tongue twister. Shoot in the shade. If you do choose to shoot in the shade, you've got to be very aware, especially if you're dealing with trees. You don't want there to be like sunlight peeping through onto the subject whatsoever. You don't want any sort of weird shadows on the subject's face. You don't want any weird light spots on the subject's face, on the subject's body. That is very unappealing. If you're shooting in the shade and you think, oh well, this is too dark, I would recommend using an external light to spice things up a bit, because it's going to add some light into the photo, and it's not going to be making your subject look weird. So yeah, I love shooting in the shade even when it's not in the middle of the day. It's really nice soft light, especially if it's sunny out. If there's clouds out, that's really good soft light. It diffuses it. So if there's clouds out, it's okay to shoot in the middle of the day. I know I've talked about that before on this channel, but if you're new here, yeah, you're not going to want to go out and shoot in the harsh light of the middle of the day. So my fifth and final tip that is going to help you improve your outdoor portrait photography is to be mindful of what your subject is wearing and how you can implement that into the environment around you. It's very important with saying that to be mindful of coordinating colors, and it's even more important to be mindful of uncoordinating colors. Like, you don't want anybody showing up in, I don't know, pink and yellow, because pink and yellow do not go together. Obviously, you can't tell your subject what to wear, but let's say they're wearing something that's pink. You don't want to go and put them in front of yellow leaves, because that's just not going to look right. It's very important to know what kind of goes together. Most of the time, you're not going to want to shoot one color onto an identical color as well. Like, you don't want to shoot somebody in orange And like if they mix orange with something like orange and blue jeans, it would be okay to shoot with like a backdrop of a different shade of orange, but you don't want to shoot two colors of orange together. Like if someone was wearing an orange shirt and there's orange leaves, you don't necessarily want to combine that unless there is a different color that's being thrown into the mix. You kind of develop an eye for it, you know when you see it, but it is so important to be mindful of what your subject is wearing and how you can implement that into the environment around you. So with that being said, my last tip for this video is be able to implement what your subject is wearing into the environment around you. And most of the time you're not going to know what they're going to be wearing until they get there, unless you're actually getting a model for a shoot. If you're dealing with a client, you're not going to know what they're wearing more than likely unless for some reason they tell you. So it's very important to just kind of have the ability to be able to take them out and say, with what you have on, you're going to look really good standing here, stand here for me, and then you get the portrait and you follow the other 4 tips that I've given you in this video, and you're just going to rock it. So yeah, you're ready to go out and take some portraits now, outside. Leave the studio behind. The studio is so 2002. So now you are ready to officially go out in the field and take that client, take that model, get outside, and you're going to absolutely rock your outdoor portrait photography session. It's very important to follow these tips. I'm going to do a brief recap. It's important to be aware of distracting elements. These are not going to be in order. It's very important to be aware what your subject is wearing and be able to implement it into the environment around you. It's good to use external lights. That can really kind of liven up a photo. You don't want to shoot in harsh light. And then finally, it is very, 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 very important. This is me stalling because I can't remember what it is. It's important to oh dear God, close your eyes, don't look, don't look, don't look, don't look. 1 second, 1 second. It's very important to not use a wide angle lens. It's good to have a 50mm or longer because it's going to make those facial features look much more natural. So with all of those tips in mind, you are now ready to go out and start shooting your outdoor portraits. You're going to have a blast doing it. I always have so much fun with models and clients when I get outside to do some portrait photography. Right now is a very busy time of year for portrait photography, so if you're feeling confident, now is a great time to start advertising. Probably through the end of September through the beginning of December, about mid-December is my most popular time of year for portraits. My next 3 to 4 weekends are already fully booked. Well, they're not fully booked, but I am booking people for the next 3 to 4 weekends. It's a pretty hectic time for me for terms of portrait photography. I'm really excited. I always have so much fun doing portraits for people. It makes memories that last forever. If you want to get all sappy and stuff, you're doing something good for somebody. So that is all I've got for today's video. Make sure you implement these tips. It's gonna help if you're new to portrait photography. If you're not new to portrait photography, absolutely start using external lights, because I've just started doing that and it makes my photos look like 10 times better. I love it so much. So once again, thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Hit that like button. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. All the information of that is in the pinned comment at the top. I have a book. I have prints that would make a great Christmas gift, a great birthday gift. Christmas is right around the corner. That's so exciting. That's all I got, and I hope you all have an amazing day.